This is 1 mana left. And I just hit 100. This is Sunday night. We're like, 9 days into the league. I did an update video about, I think, 4 days ago showing kind of the Squire swap and where I was at so far. I think it was like 97 maybe 98. But yeah, I just hit 100. So I've done a couple upgrades since then. I just Squire swapped in the last video. And since then, I've gone Crit Jewels for Flesh Flame. So I've gone Bound by Destiny. I've upgraded from Cogwork to a Helical. And yeah, I have Flesh Flame now for Righteous Providence for crit. So I'm crit based now. In the last video, I checked and I ended up being, I think, 42 mil DPS. Right now I'm 106. So because of the crit jewel swap, I'm much higher damage. And obviously I'm Mageblood, so I'm much faster now. I've done an aura swap. I'll go over all this, but I'll start with a demonstration here of Uber Shaper. I'm doing the exact same as the last video, just to get like a maybe good before and after of the upgrades, because I saw some comments on the other videos being like, "Oh, this looks like a finished build. This looks like an end setup, right?" No, not really. That was kind of my starter, and I have a lot more damage now. I have a lot more defense. I'm a lot tankier. Just a lot of upgrades. So this is going to be a good demonstration to show the before and after of the last Uber Shaper and this Uber Shaper. See how much stronger I am. And I'll show it off, and then I'll talk about those 3 upgrades, and then what I'm going to do after. So, I'll talk about Flesh Flame. I'll talk about some as I go. So, Flesh Flame, I have Righteous Providence from Inquisitor right now. You're already kind of hybrid stacking Strength and Int because of your Shaper's Touch, right? But before, I was only about 500 Int. Now, I've gone all the way up to over 1,000. And this is how I get 85 crit on Sheep, but I'm Assassin's Mark, which puts me over 100. So the Righteous Providence gives you crit based off your lowest of Strength or Int. So before I was doing like opportunistic Strength, but not really prioritizing it, so I was missing it in some spots. But now that I'm Crit Jewels, I've gone ahead and I've got it pretty much everywhere I can. I'm taking like the beef nodes basically. I'm getting it on double ring strength int, as I was missing it on ring before. Before I had int mana on my split personalities, now I'm strength int on both. Before I didn't have a lethal pride, now I'm doing lethal pride here, which gives you all of these points with unnatural instinct is giving you 4 strength on all of these that are overlapping. And I've got like, some 5% strength here on the lethal pride as well. So this lethal pride is giving me, I don't know, like 200 strength. Yep. 194 strength. So, all these things, basically, all these things are contributing to the transition from being 500 strength to about 1,200. And that gives me 100% crit, which lets me go crit multi, and crit on the ring as well. So now, with that and Assassin's Mark, I have like 400 crit multi, and I drop LA Overload, and now I have a lot of crit, which is part of why I have like 2.5 times damage. I have a weapon swap now because I have Squire instead of Prism Guardian. So that contributes to a lot of my tankiness if I want to do a phase like this where he has an immune phase and I can do this. But damage is a lot higher. I'm pretty tanky. I added Flesh and Stone and Tempest Shield. This contributed to my tankiness. I'll talk about that actually. So in the last video I showed the Squire swap where I was I just went Purity of the Elements to fix all my res. But I've gone Mageblood now. Mageblood fixes all your res, so I don't need the Purity of Elements anymore. I've gone for, instead of doing triple Ellie Flask, because Coruscating Elixir is a Ruby Flask, instead I'm only doing 2 Ellie Flasks. So I'm doing the Jade Flask, which for bossing on Shaper doesn't really matter, but for like mapping and T17s it's a pretty big deal. It's a really big deal in Delve. So I'm opting for the Jade instead of Ruby. And then I'm basically shifting all my existing res on gear to only fire for the most part. Why do I randomly do no damage on some of these? I don't know. Like every 5th Shaper phase, it feels like I'm doing like 0 damage. And I don't know what's off. But hopefully the next one feels a lot higher. That was odd. But yeah, the Mageblood fixes all of my cold and lightning res, and then anywhere left over, I'm switching to fire, because that one's not up all the time. Therefore, I want to be, That's the only one I really have to babysit. But you can see I have the hybrid craft here, and then the ring I shifted, so that's how I'm getting all my fire res with topaz and sapphire. That's pretty much all you do for ruby or for Mageblood swap. The thing I'll add here that a lot of people like miss, I think, is people feel weaker, kind of falsely, when they swap to Mageblood from the attributes Hunter Belt that's giving you a lot of strength and percent attributes. The thing is, just because your numbers went down, you're not actually weaker. I am considerably stronger than I was yesterday pre-Mageblood. But my globes are smaller, and that makes people feel weaker. My character versus yesterday I had 21k energy shield and 16k mana. I am 13% higher defense. I'm about twice as fast, and I'm 52% tankier. And that's because let's go over what I swapped, okay? So, instead of having no max res, now I have some max res, because these give 9 max res. So a lot more Ellie tankiness. Instead of using Purity of Elements to fix my res, I've dropped that. And I've gone for a setup where I'm using this reservation here with a Runecraft Treachery. You don't have to do this. You can just use like Wrath and just do the exact same setup for level 2 Enlighten as the Squire swap. But I've opted to do this instead. I kind of like it. This gives you 15 res efficiency, but it's not mana res efficiency. It's all res efficiency. So it works on life reservation as well, even though I'm not reserving any mana. And the way I'm doing this is Flesh and Stone. This Treachery says your auras affect enemies. Flesh and Stone doesn't work because the wording on this is auras from your skills which affect allies affect enemies. Flesh and Stone and Tempest Shield do not do that, so they don't affect enemies at all. And then I have Discipline, which does affect enemies. However, there's a big difference between monsters and players. So this aura giving 217 energy shield to enemies, that doesn't do very much for monsters who have millions of HP. And then Clarity, you'll find that giving monsters 20 mana regen also doesn't do anything. So this lets me drop the level 2 Enlighten, up the Clarity a little bit, which doesn't actually really matter, but instead of using a single 50% aura, I'm going for the double up on the Tempest Shield and Flesh and Stone. So this is just pretty much a 20% damage reduction to everything. This gives me shock immunity, which frees up a flask to get curse immunity. And then it's giving me 28 or 26 spell block, which is really nice. And then that in combination with the max res is making my character like 50% tankier, even though I lost a little bit of energy shield. Mitigation well outweighs the raw pool amount. The damage went a lot up because now I have crit multi on a ring, so this gave me 62 crit multi. So that pretty much offset the losing a 50% aura when I was using Wrath briefly before I crafted this ring. But I traded actually Purity of Elements before the swap, truly, for just like 62 more multi. So that's part of why the damage is up, because that's like 20-something% more damage, despite losing about like 1,200 mana. But yeah, basically the name of the game is you're a dual stacker, strength and int, and you're playing where you're trying to get strength and int out of 3 suffixes on everything, which makes res really tough. You need to hit res cap. You need 2 suffixes that are strength and int on pretty much everywhere you can get it, which is really, really hard to still res cap. That's why you had to run Purity of Elements before. So Mageblood, it seems like your numbers are lower on a stacker, but because you're under such suffix pressure, trying to get res, chaos res, because you're a low life build, right? I'm trying to get chaos res still, and still get 2 attributes and everything. It's just like not possible. So you have to make sacrifices somewhere. That's why when you switch to Mageblood, the thing you have to look out for is to leverage this almighty resistance source you have, and just shift everywhere that had res before into attributes. So it's just attributes everywhere I can get it now. I could maybe, even if I didn't need the chaos res, which I will switch this later, that's why I crafted it this way, I'll switch to all attributes on this briefly when I switch to the Wander CI setup. But yeah, that's the aura setup. That's the Mageblood swap. The globe numbers go down, but if you look in the POB numbers go way up because of all the crit multi, the mitigation from max res, the flesh and stone, the tempest shield, the Mageblood suffixes. The raw EHP and damage goes way up despite the globe numbers going down a little bit. But even still, the globe numbers can hang in there by switching a lot of your otherwise res on suffixes to just like raw strength int. The last thing I'm going to go over is where I would continue to scale this build if I was going to continue to scale it. Because right now, I am done upgrading the build, and probably tomorrow I'm going to switch to my Wander setup. Hypothetically, if I said, I love Mjolnir, I'm not switching Wander, I'm going to continue to scale this forever, and I'm going to push to 6k Delve again, which I've done before in this build. The biggest thing I would do next is I would probably just chill with this setup for a little while. I would probably add, I have a rare jewel somewhere that's not doing a whole lot. I could get like a triple multi-jewel, but I'd probably try to go for a small cluster jewel, just to squeeze out a lot more stats. I would go for Journey of the Mind, and I would come over here and maybe push for even more max res. I have an endgame POB I'm going to link that has all of this. So I'm going to link my current POB. I'm not going to link the previous POBs because that's in the previous update video and that's in the League Start video. I'm going to link the current one, and I'm going to link an even bigger POB if I hypothetically kept upgrading this character. And that's going to go for the Journey of the Mind tattoos probably. As well as Misted Helical is the next one. So small cluster, Journey of the Mind tattoos, Misted Helical. So this ring right here, I would basically go for a 3 positive, strength, int, crit, multi. Would not care at all about the mana. That seems bad for mana stacker, but I only have 54 from a Veiled mod. 180 strength and int versus 54 mana and 90 is way more mana. If this was if I completely got rid of the res and completely got rid of the mana, and I just went for the strength int, let's even ignore the crit multi. I would gain like 3,000 energy shield and 2,000 mana just from that. Just because all that attribute blows 54 mana out of the water. So that's kind of the biggest remaining upgrade, is going for like a 3 positive helical. You don't need crit multi. There's actually some merit to just going for Chaos Res instead. They're both a viable 3-stat helical, because Chaos Res would basically just cap you instantly. You could, if you were super tryhard, go for 2 3 positives, one with crit multi and one for Chaos Res, because Misted Helical Chaos Res on a pure Chaos Res roll can go over 100, and that's actually way over cap. So you don't actually need to... You'd go way over what you need. So you could go for 1 crit multi ring and 1 Chaos Res ring. That's probably like the true best in slot, besides like a 4 or 5 positive. I don't like that, however, because it's really hard to get a 3 positive helical. It's 1 in 10. And Calandra's Touch is too OP with helicals, especially if you're going for Misted Helicals. So I don't like that option. But if you were going Giga Tryhard, you could do that. And then maybe you go like single ring with like 1 Chaos Res ring here instead of Fire Res. But I don't really like to go for that. But yeah, it's basically Journey of the Mind, 1 small, and Misted Helical if I was going to keep upgrading the character. As well as just like really min-max things like Corruptions. I'm missing Corruption on Mjolnir. I can get AoE here. Missing Corruption on Indigon. Can get like 90 multiplier here. And then drop the rune. Missing Corruption on Squire. You can get some plus gems. I'm missing maybe another Corruption on Ivory Tower. I'm missing Corruption on Mageblood. I'm missing Abyss Socket on Boots. Those are the kind of extreme... the Abyss Socket isn't like that min-max, but all the Corruptions, especially on the Mageblood and the Misty Helical, is kind of like the super endgame that I would go for. But that's how it would look if I went for the like multi-mirror Mjolnir instead of like a sub 1 mirror. Like I'm like 450 div, so I'm actually like about a mirror right now on budget. I'll link this POB. I'll link the hypothetical POB where I go for like putting more into this character if I was to keep scaling this without switching. But I'm going to switch tomorrow. This is the conclusion of my Mjolnir journey for my, I think, 5th time playing it as a Templar League starter. I love it every time. I'll probably do it again at some point. But once again, this is the end of my Mjolnir road. I'm going on to crazier, stupider things from here on out for the rest of the league. See you guys next time.